Hey gang, this is Deke McClelland. Welcome to Deke's Techniques. I'm squeezing in a special technique this week in honor of the London Olympics, which are like 3 days and 6 hours away. I'm going to show you how to perfectly render the Olympic rings. And we're going to do so from scratch here inside Illustrator. So I'm going to switch over to this file. All I've got is a couple of guidelines, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and select my ellipse tool from the Shape Tool flyout menu. And then I'll Alt-click or Option-click at the intersection of those two guidelines. And I'll create an ellipse that measures 125 points wide by 125 points tall. And then click OK. All right, now we need to create a smaller copy of that circle. And I'll do so by double-clicking on the Scale tool. And that'll bring up the Scale dialog box. You want to set the uniform value to 81% and then click on the Copy button in order to create a copy of that ring. All right, now I'm going to switch back to the black arrow tool. And I'll select both of those circles. And I'm going to take the line weight up to 2 points. And I'm also going to click on this first color swatch up here in the control panel. And I'm going to change the color to blue. So we end up with this effect here. Now, the inner circle needs to be cutting a hole from the outer circle. And you can do that by going up to the object menu, choosing compound path, and then choosing make. And you end up with a ring. All right, now let's make a few copies of this ring. I'll start by dragging the rings down and to the right like so. And I'm pressing the Shift key to constrain the angle of my drag to exactly diagonal, as you can see here. And once I get it to about 67.5 points here, I'm going to press and hold the Alt key, the Option key on the Mac, in order to create a copy of that ring. Now go ahead and click on the first ring once again to reselect it, and press Control-Y or Command-Y on the Mac to switch to the outline mode. And then select the Reflect tool from the Rotate tool flyout menu, and Alt-click or Option-click at the center point for that bottom ring. And then set the axis to vertical and click on the Copy button in order to create a copy of that ring. Now I'm going to press the Control key or the Command key on the Mac and drag around these two rings in order to select them. And still armed with the Reflect tool, I'm going to Alt-click or Option-click at the center of that most recent ring, make sure axis is set to vertical once again, and click on the Copy button in order to create those final rings. All right, now I'm going to press Control-Y or Command-Y on the Mac to switch back to the preview mode. I'll go ahead and grab my black arrow tool once again, and I'll marquee these rings like so, all but the first one. And I'm going to press Control-Shift left bracket or Command-Shift left bracket on the Mac to send those guys to the back of the stack. And then I'll marquee just these two last rings and press that same keyboard shortcut, Control-Shift left bracket, Command-Shift left bracket on the Mac to send them to the back of the stack. And that way we've got the rings in the right stacking order. All right, now to color the rings. I'll select this bottommost ring first, and then I'll go up to the control panel and click on the first swatch and switch the fill color to yellow. And then I'll go ahead and select the second guy here and change his fill to black. I'll select the fourth ring, and then I'll change its fill to green. And then finally, I'll select the last ring, and I'll change it to red. All right, now that I've drawn and colored all the rings, I no longer need the guidelines, so I'll go up to the View menu and choose Guides, and then choose Clear Guides. And now what we need to do is create an interlocking rings effect. For example, right now each one of the rings is just sitting on top of the other one. We want them to be interlocking so that it looks like if we were to pull the rings, they would not pull apart. And we can achieve that effect using Live Paint. So I'll press Control-A or Command-A on the Mac in order to select all the rings. And then here in CS6, I go over to the Shape Builder tool and click and hold on it, and you'll see the Live Paint bucket, which is what we're looking for. And notice we can see these little swatches above the cursor. You need to arrow your way to the yellow swatch, as I have in this case. So the yellow swatch should appear in the center, and then you want to click with that little tiny arrowhead there inside that area where the blue ring overlaps the yellow one. All right, now we'll move over to this little overlapping area. Press the right arrow key in order to advance to black and click on it. Then advance to the next overlapping area, press the right arrow key to advance to green, click. And then finally, press the right arrow key to advance to red and click on this overlapping area here. Now at this point, we've got it so that the fill color for the rings works, but we've got some bad strokes. So what you want to do in order to change the strokes, the easiest way to work, is to double click on the Live Paint Bucket tool to bring up the Live Paint Bucket Options dialog box, and then go ahead and turn on Paint Strokes, which is turned off by default. Then click OK. All right, now notice if you hover over an outline of a shape, you'll see this little paintbrush. And you should see black as the center color above the brush. If so, then just go ahead and click here and here as well in order to change those strokes there to black. And then you want to click right here and here. It's not going to appear to make a huge difference because we've got a black stroke against the black fill, but it is important to go ahead and stroke those areas. Then you want to stroke here and here as well around the green ring. And finally, you want to stroke around the red ring here and at this location as well. All right, now we want to get rid of some strokes. And if you hover over this stroke right there, you'll see that the color is black. You want to go ahead and press the left arrow key or even the right arrow key, whatever, enough times until you get to none, that little red slash. And then click at each of these stroke locations to get rid of them. You want to get rid of this stroke and this stroke as well. We don't want this stroke or this stroke either. And finally, you want to get rid of this one and this one. And now, if you go ahead and press Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on the Mac to deselect the rings, you'll see that we have absolutely perfect interlocking shapes. And those shapes, by the way, will survive a fair amount of modifications. For example, if I were to switch to the wide arrow tool, and then I'll press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and drag around both of the circles that make up the red ring, you can see that I can move it to a different location and it continues to have that interlocking effect. All right, I'm going to press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that change. I'm going to show you one more thing here. I'll press Control-A or Command-A on the Mac to select all the rings. I'm going to press Control-H or Command-H on the Mac to hide the anchor points and the other selection artifacts. And I'm going to go up here to the second swatch in the control panel. It reads question mark because, after all, we've got some black strokes and some none strokes as well. And I'm going to change all of those strokes to white, so we end up with this effect here. And that, friends, is how you create interlocking Olympic quality rings here inside Illustrator.